Hi, I'm Eloy Ortiz Oakley, and welcome back to The Rent, the podcast where we pull back the curtain and break down the people, the policies, and the politics of our higher education system. In this episode, I finalized my conversations with key innovators that I ran into at the recent ASU+GSV Summit in San Diego. Today, I'm talking with Deborah Quazzo, managing partner at GSV Ventures and co-founder of the ASU+GSV Summit. Welcome to The Rent, Deborah.
Thank you, Eloy. It is delightful to be here.
It's great to see you as well. So let's jump into some of these questions. Deborah, you are the managing partner at GSV Ventures and the co-founder of the ASU+GSV Summit, which is now, I think, in its 14th year.
We just finished the 14th
Just finished the 14th.
We got, COVID sort of messed us up a little bit. But we did start in 2010, and we just finished the 14th event. And so next year will be our 15th.
Time flies.
Yep. I know, crazy.
So for our listeners, tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to your interest in education technology. And also tell us a little bit about GSV Ventures and how you wound up partnering with Michael Crow and Arizona State University to launch all of this.
I have been working with my partner, Michael Moe, in education innovation and education technology for frighteningly over 25 years. And so we hit 25 and we decided not to add any more years onto it. So it is over 25. Now we're just going to go with over 25 years until it gets to 100 or something. But so we've been working a long time in the sector, obviously way before anything material was happening as it related to the application of technology. And we did that as investment bankers and research analysts and conveners and things like that over the initial period. And that's kind of how we came at it initially. Back probably 2009 or so, Michael Moe had the incredible opportunity to join an innovation committee at Arizona State. Neither one of us had any alumni tie, but he got a bit of a chance to see what Michael Crow had going on under the hood. Because in 2010, as you remember, Eloy, it would not have been an obvious choice to align yourself with Arizona State if you were trying to say that you wanted to do something related to being a leader in technology and a leader in academic performance and all that sort of thing. They were the largest public university, but had yet to begin to turn over the cards in terms of what Michael Crow had going on under the hood to basically transform the university into a place that was measured by its impact on students, not the students they kept out, but through the admissions of more and more students, and putting those more and more students through to great success. So we're very fortunate when we did that partnering back in as the first event was 2010. So back in 2009 or whatever the original set of meetings was, and it really was that meeting. Michael really at some point Michael Moe suggested to Michael Crow that why don't you try to do some sort of convening that really showcased what was going on in the world of education innovation and transformation, and particularly as it related to the application of technology. When we started ASU, I think had 4 technology partners. Today, they probably have 4,000. If you really got in there and tried to count them. So it was a really fortuitous partnering that happened. It's been pretty remarkable to be a partner with the largest public university in the country for 15 years and have it be so smooth. And they even joined us in partnering on a smaller event we did this February in India, because they're obviously spreading their wings into global markets all over the world. And so it's really been terrific. It's been remarkable. And it's also given us such a window. I mean, they are an innovation machine. And for us to be able to go onto campus, and I tell people all the time, if you've got 2 days to do a road trip to Arizona State and just see the kinds of innovation that's happening there on 1,000 different levels, I highly recommend it. It can be transformative. But so that was really the history. I got passionate. I was really, as an investment banker, it became obvious to me that the wedge of innovation and being able to deliver high quality education at scale to many millions of people, not only in the United States, but in the world, was something that was one of the few levers we have to make a difference. I know that's something, preaching to the choir on that one, but that's kind of when I got hooked and realized that we could do more than we to being somebody who was transacting in the sector to actually be very involved philanthropically from a policy perspective. And then from this convening perspective, I think it's, we are really proud of what we built starting in, 2010. We were back at Arizona State Sky Song facility in Scottsdale, as we like to say, 350 people in sweaty conference rooms. We were able to, outgrow that. And this year had record attendance, with over 7,000 people registered and somewhere just under 7,000 being there live. Although I hear from lots of folks that there are probably 3,000 people who are there who don't.
Yeah, they just hang around.
Hanging around the event. And that's all great too. That's all great too. So I think anything we can do to catalyze these diverse sets of humans from, when we started this, it was, as my partner Michael said, a strange cocktail of people who didn't typically get in the same room together. So ed tech founders with philanthropists, with investors, with practitioners in the K-12, higher ed, and workforce spaces. So the whole idea is to really mash people up and catalyze and inspire people to take actions as they come out of the event.
Well, having attended many ASU+GSV summits, I can say that, I can say that it has truly continued to grow. It's a fun event, lots of different people. And where else can you see the Undersecretary of Education with a former Secretary of Education, with some of the top ed tech founders all together talking about how the federal government regulates ed tech? So I thought it was, however you landed on this, it's been a lot of fun. Now, ASU+GSV highlights some of the more cutting edge ideas and trends in education technology. I think anybody who works in and around ed tech is there. And as you said, you've been to many of these. What excited you about what you saw at this year's summit in San Diego?
We had already positioned the theme for this year, which was Brave New World, and well ahead of the emergence of ChatGPT and the whole GPT phenomenon. So it turned out to be pretty fortuitous that or I don't know, either prescient or fortuitous or whatever it was. It turned out to be a pretty good theme for what's going on in the world. We've always had artificial intelligence and emerging technologies embedded in the program. We've, from the very beginning, obviously it was not generative artificial intelligence, since that really is something that fully emerged in the January time period. But we've always had a big eye on what kinds of technologies can be leveraged to accelerate learning. And so to accelerate learning, to accelerate, assessment, we all know we're sitting here with massive learning loss. It wasn't great going into COVID. We were not educating enough of our children in the K-12 system going into COVID, but coming out of COVID, and we're just, we're continuing to see depressing research released. The research report from Tom Kane and Sean from Harvard and Stanford came out this week, just again reiterating the loss has not been recovered. And looking at location-based analysis of where the losses are the most severe, and trying to also isolate factors that have caused the severity, and what do we do to solve it. So I think as you think about that daunting challenge, which then, as you well know, is inherited into the higher ed system, and then is inherited into the employment system, and then, the whole, 50-60% of people don't go into the higher ed system, go directly in the employment system. So we've always viewed the employer as the fourth education system, because they're having to be, right? They're inheriting failures downstream, and they're inheriting the challenges of obsolescence, job obsolescence. So we do believe, I appreciate there is positive and the negative around what's going on with generative AI. The Atlantic has a big article this week on just the frustrations that university professors are facing, particularly writing professors, about, what do I do? How do I address this? How do you teach writing when 90% of your kids are using a ChatGPT or whatever? But I really do think the ability to leverage generative AI in a way that, and non-generative AI, in a way that can allow us to accelerate learning, make it personalized, help teachers and faculty members, address more kids at disparate points of ability because of, learning they did or didn't have in prior periods. I think it is a real cause for optimism. And there, we had, I think, the vast majority of leading edge companies in the generative AI space. We also had, other companies like a company we've invested in with Arizona State University,
Right.
Dreamscape Learn, which is a VR-based platform, which will also have artificial intelligence in it, over time in its delivery. But that company is seeing really accelerated learning gains from students that go through biology, using the Dreamscape system. So I think where we get excited, because if you really look at it, and we've had a lot of conversations about this, we've been, the Summit's in its 15th year, and we've had, I don't know how many decades now, 2 decades at least of ed tech, or the application of technology to education and skills. And we haven't made much progress. Right. So if, the reality is, and there are a lot of reasons for that. It's not that all the ed tech's bad. It's, it's certainly fidelity of implementation. It's challenges that young people face in their personal lives. It's challenges teachers face, faculty, so there are a host of issues, but for why we haven't been more successful in moving the needle on academic and skill-based outcomes. But I think that we have some real optimism and hopefulness that that we are at a moment of complete revolution, and that there will be the delivery of learning can be transformed through the leveraging of some of these technologies to support teachers, faculty, students. And that's where we get more optimistic, more hopeful. And it's also, I think the other thing that's kind of cool is, and we saw it because there were so many, it's also drawing more creative founders into the ed tech sector. So we're seeing people pouring out of Google, great leaders out of Google, great leaders out of Microsoft, Amazon. You'll see some really exciting companies created by very experienced, very smart people who not only understand the technology, but they also understand, education. So they come out of a lot of them are coming out of the education efforts of those large companies. And so I think that's also exciting because it's sort of a new wave. Innovation requires innovators and great innovators. And that's true whether you're talking about a company or a university or a K-12 system or the workforce. But I think there is a level of excitement that is drawing more, innovators into the system. We're seeing incredible innovations with K-12 teachers and principals and leaders. And so, and the higher ed space as well. So while I think there is a lot of angst, there's certainly a level of anxiety about what this means for your job or how you have to change things. I do think net, it's going to give us a shot at trying to pull in these gaps that have existed for too long, but have been exacerbated by the years in COVID and are going to be even further exacerbated by the rapid move of technology.
Well, I'm hopeful as well. I think this march toward personalization continues, and I've certainly seen progress living with a huge education organization pre-pandemic and then seeing it quickly evolve through the pandemic and now post-pandemic. I definitely see the change. Now, you mentioned more traditional educators. I know in my conversations with some of the founders and some of the ed tech folks, some of them expressed a desire to see more traditional educators at the summit. How do you think we can pull them in and get them to see the value of hearing all this great work that's happening throughout the ed tech sector?
What we did this year, and we are a leadership summit, right? So we have all, because we don't want to there are a lot of great education events in K-12, higher ed, and workforce. And we've always wanted to carve out kind of our position as intentionally focused on leadership. So whether it's in K-12, where we have a massive scholarship program for principals and superintendents, and we doubled down on that K-12 community piece. We had over 1,100 principals and superintendents representing 47 of 50 states, which is, off the charts. And that was up, from maybe 800 last year. What we did on the higher ed side, we actually were up by 3 or 4-fold in the higher ed space. We actually went out intentionally. I think that we came out of the summit in 2022, we looked at the attendee base, and we said, well, actually, we have and we sort of think of the summit in 10% blocks. And we said, well, we actually have 10% of attendees come from higher education. But when you peel it back, we realized that the numbers were being dominated by the big guys, right? So whether it was ASU or Western Governors or Southern New Hampshire or, folks like that, were sending large numbers of people to the summit because it was so productive for them to meet probably ed tech companies and things like that. We weren't getting smaller universities and other universities who I think didn't feel like it was their, it was a neighborhood that they would be welcome in. And I think, and there's, some of that is a unintended intimidation from ASU and how big ASU is and all that sort of thing. So we actually went out intentionally this year, began to work with university organizations like CIC and Marjorie Haas, who is absolutely fantastic. They brought, and I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but they brought a huge number of university, smaller, mid-sized university presidents. I had a wonderful, I'm not going to remember the university, but a wonderful man grabbed me at our closing piece on Wednesday night and said, "This has been amazing. I am scared to death. I'm going back to campus," and I'm going. And he was a president of a smaller university. So we really intentionally realized that the event, is not meant to preach to the choir. So if it's just ASU preaching to ASU or Western Government or whomever, then we haven't really accomplished what we wanted. So we did appreciably increase the community attendance in the higher ed space. We're probably going to do something interesting next year about adding an expo at the front of it, which would be more logical because it won't have a cost to it for faculty, and will allow companies and other organizations who want to, even countries who want to display and want to interact with faculty and teachers. And so we're that's in the works of leveraging the San Diego Conference Center, which is just a building away from the Hyatt, and having a free expo that directly precedes and overlaps probably one day of ASU GSV, and gives real access to folks who can come in for free and spend real time with technology providers and all that. So I think that is a way for us to kind of try to embrace, have access for across markets. But I do because in ASU GSV event, the idea was really to focus on leaders and then have leaders go back and disseminate. We certainly have, a number of faculty who come, but the idea really was to have, chancellors, provosts, presidents. We're not even, because CTOs actually have EDUCAUSE, so it's not, we've never had a big group there, but to really get the rest of the group in an environment where they can see the kind of innovation that's happening at the most innovative places and be inspired by it, perhaps, and go back and proselytize a little bit. And then hopefully we'll create some ongoing groups that assemble together. So we'd like to double the higher ed group again. And we've hit capacity on the summit itself. We can't really go beyond 7,000 people in the current venue, and probably don't want to. But we would be very interested in taking the higher ed group up probably another double.
One of the hopes through this podcast is to reach some of those folks that are really interested in what's going on in higher ed, maybe leaders on their campuses, whether it's a community college or a regional four-year university, and get them interested in coming and just understanding what's going on.
And we did some really good, and I think we found that some of the organizations, the higher ed organizations, and I think we probably need to get to more of them, but we did some really great scholarship packaging around admissions and hotel, and I think that was really helpful, particularly for folks who have got, which is a lot of universities and community colleges who are budget constrained and things like that, just and are outside of the catchment area of Southern California.
So in addition to running this enterprise called ASU+GSV Summit, you're also an investor in ed tech. Yep. I'm sure lots of startups are popping up talking about how they're going to leverage AI. As an investor, how do you look at those startups? What are you looking for in the kinds of investments you're thinking about making, and the kind of pitches that you're hearing from various startups?
Pretty much everyone has put AI onto their, generative AI. onto their pitch. I think that's the real trick now is wheat, pulling wheat from chaff. And oh, by the way, realizing, of course, every player in the market today, almost every player in the market today, is going to be applying, generative AI to whether it's content production or whether it's chatbots to, answer this or that, or, so everyone is and has to do that. But the startups, the guys who are really starting from zero, what we are generally doing is finding incredibly talented entrepreneurs who come out of tech backgrounds, who have incredible insights and perspective on AI and where it's going and what's happening, and who have the ability to be rapidly flexible. Because what we do know is these, even company we've already a team we already backed called Chiron Learning, for example, we were on it today. I mean, they've already seen an incredible widening of the addressable market they have. We're starting in K-12. They're now seeing higher ed applications, and particularly for online universities, and they're seeing corporate applications. And a lot of that actually came from interactions at ASU+GSV. And so we're trying to back very agile people who are also listening really hard. It's always true that the vast majority of venture-backed companies don't make it. I think there is such a plethora of, folks jumping in here. If you hear AI tutor one more time, you're probably going to, shoot yourself. You sort of wonder at some point, how many AI tutors can you actually have? And what does that mean? Or maybe it really needs to go to something else, around to your point, around it's a reflection of personalization and a reflection of other elements of the learning delivery. So I think we're just trying to find the folks who have deep rooted expertise and who and therefore also not only in AI, but also in education. Because I think you're going to have a lot of folks jump in who don't have the education perspective. And as you and I both know, education is a lot harder industry than people appreciate it to be. And we're still in the early innings of proving that ed tech is a successful tech category. And we've had some incredible businesses built, but we haven't achieved the scale of other tech categories yet for the most part. So that's kind of what we're looking to do, is back really talented founders whom we can hopefully really lean into and give our relationships and expertise to, and help them look for the landmines and the opportunities. We're actually doing a school visit to KIPP schools here in Chicago next week. When one of the founders, they're doing a beta test around a very personalized math product that helps teachers assemble information about the students and then kind of change, and it helps them personalize their own learning delivery to individual students within the class based on what they're quickly learning from the AI in the platform. And so we're really excited, So I think we're seeing very cool things like that.
As I heard you talking, I couldn't help but remember one of the lines that Bill Gates said when he was there talking to us. He said he was clear about what investing in ed tech is all about for him. It's about philanthropy. So
he sort of Bill sort of went down a bad path there for a second. I think Jesse sort of pulled him back in, and suggesting that it needed to be philanthropic, and then he kind of quickly tried to correct himself. But by the way, he's frustrated by his philanthropic investments. So I think the world of what they've done, because they took a lot of risks and a lot of it didn't work, and at least we now have the research and the data around what has and hasn't worked. And I think they're doubling down and putting $1 billion into math, is just looking at our math numbers and how far behind our kids are, and then follow that into college I think is great. And I love the fact that they haven't given up, because there are folks who have given up on the philanthropy for education, and they haven't given up at all. And I love that. I did want to kill him when he said that.
I figured, but he got a good laugh or a lot of moans. So
true.
let me ask you a final question as we wrap up. I recognize that you're still recovering from the April summit, but what are your thoughts about going into the next ASU+GSV Summit? Where do you go from here? I know you've talked a little bit about some of the things you're thinking about, but any other teasers as you start planning for 2024?
Yeah, I think we're hoping that we hope we're going to have some windows of some windows of optimism, and we're already playing with the theme around that. I think we are thinking hard about the ability to execute a real expo that's going to give more practitioners access to providers of tech, providers of technology solutions, so that they can do more hands-on. I think that'll be an interesting addition to the event. I think we want to. I've fallen in love with a podcast that Barry Weiser spoke this year with a guy named Tim Urban, and we're going to have Tim speak this next year. We've already booked him. And his point is that there are echo chambers and there are innovation labs, and it's okay to have an echo chamber as long as the echo chamber is listening to other echo chambers or listening to other perspectives. And I think that our objective is to really never be an echo chamber, that we are always engaging in both sides of dialogue. And I think we're going to sit back and make sure we're doing that, and probably even have a whole stage where we have people talk, debate. You made the point about having this Undersecretary of Education who is a wonderful human, but who many people disagree with, to have James Cabal there. And he was fantastic, by the way, for doing it, because he didn't have to. And I applaud. I mean, that was the definition of an innovation lab, when you're willing to not stay in your echo chamber, and you come out and talk to folks in the innovation lab and see where that goes. So I think that's actually a big focus of ours, that we stay in innovation lab. An innovation lab requires that we're talking about issues from multiple perspectives and respecting people we disagree with. And that's what I hope we continue to push. My partner, Michael Moe, who's always been the most passionate and impassioned on that issue. And yeah, so we're already sort of booking people with the intention of teeing things up like that. So yeah, so that's what we do. And then anybody's interested in India, we're probably going to do a much larger event in India in January or February.
All right.
So
well, that sounds like fun.
We'll have that too.
All right. Listen, Deborah, I really appreciate you taking the time and talking to me here on The Rant. Really have enjoyed our conversation. Enjoy the work that you all have done with the summit, and I look forward to 2024. So thanks for joining me.
Awesome. Well, we always want you in the program, Eloy. So happy to get you booked already. So thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Deborah. All right. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us here on The Rant. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the like button. And if you went to the summit, please let me know your thoughts. What did you enjoy about the summit? What do you hope to see in the coming year? And leave me your comments about this episode. And to hear more episodes, subscribe to this channel. Follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you soon.